Yes, ma'am. Yes, right.
Okay. So, children, we are joining again, and we come to another question, that how zinc oxide can be reduced to metallic zinc. The choices are heating alone, heating with oxygen, heating with carbon, and heating with sulfur. Here, the answer is heating with carbon. Zinc oxide can easily be converted into zinc metal by simply heating with carbon in an open container. Moving on to the next one, we have how is calcium obtained? Calcium is obtained by the electrolysis of, now whether it is their oxides, their carbides, their chlorides, or the sulfides. So here we have already done a few questions on this type, and by now it will be clear to us that the answer can only be chloride. For sodium, potassium, magnesium, calcium, it is the chlorides only which can be used to get the metals. Now we have a question that there is an arrangement shown to you, and where is the pure copper going to be getting collected? You can see two electrodes over here, the cathode and the anode. So, will it be at the bottom of the cell where you can see something brown? Will it be at the cathode? Will it be at the surface floating on top, or will it be at the anode? The answer over here is at the cathode only. What is at the bottom of the anode, that brown color, is actually called anode mud. It is containing a lot of impurities. So we go to the next question. And over here, which process is used to reduce aluminium oxide to aluminium? Whether it is hydraulic washing, that means by simply washing with water, the thermite process, about which we have seen in the previous slides, electrolytic reduction, or roasting. And the answers over here is electrolytic reduction only. For aluminium oxide, we can use only electrolytic reduction. Now, what is an electrolytic cell containing? Because you can be asked to name the parts of an electrolytic cell. So, here are the choices given to you. Whether it is 1 and 2, that means positively charged cathode and negatively charged anode, or it is 3 and 4, that is positively charged anode and negatively charged cathode, or it is 1 and 3, the cathode is positively charged and anode is also positively charged. So in this way we have been given some choices. The answer is B, that is 3 and 4. The anode is positively charged and the cathode is negatively charged. So this is the only correct solution. We now go that if an ore of tin is containing FeCrO4 as an impurity, so how can it be concentrated? Froth flotation, magnetic separation, gravity separation, or electrostatic method. Now here the impurity is magnetic substance. So the impurity will stick to the belt and the pure tin ore will be removed or fall off once the electromagnet is started. So here the method of removing the impurity FeCrO4 from tin ore is magnetic separation. Okay. Now, here is another important process, that is the anode used in Hall-Heroult's process of electrolysis is graphite, silver, iron or copper. So the answer over here is graphite. This method is used for aluminium, and here the anode is used as anode is made up of graphite only. Now during smelting, an additional substance is added, and this thing combines with the impurities and it makes a fusible, means a molten product. What is it called? Is it called slag? It is called mud, it's called gangue or flux. So we know that flux is, we've seen in the previous slide, it is an additional substance which is added. Okay, so let us see. The answer is slag. So it cannot be flux, it cannot be mud, and so the fusible thing that comes out is known by the name of slag. Questions from this part are also very, very common. Going on to the next question. In the electrolytic refining of copper, silver and gold are found. See, when copper is refined, the impurities that fall down are containing silver and gold. So, on anode, in the solution, in the anode mud, in the cathode mud. So, actually, there is nothing called cathode mud over there. There is anode mud, and in that anode mud, it is not like mud which we throw away, but we try to get back silver and gold from there. Now we are interested in knowing the methods of purification. So how we can obtain high purity copper metal? By carbon reduction, by hydrogen reduction, electrolytic or thermite reduction. See, whenever anything of high purity is to be obtained, then the answer will always be electrolytic reduction. Now, silica is added to roasted copper ore. That means the copper ore which is heated in lot of air and it has got converted into copper oxide. So why is silica added? So silica is added to remove something. Your question is which of these things? Cuprous sulfide, ferrous oxide, ferrous sulfide or cuprous oxide? And the answer is ferrous oxide present as gangue. So we introduce you to the next term, that is gangue, and gangue is the impurity that is present along with the ore. Flux is that extra substance added to combine with the impurity or gangue. And during smelting, the flux combines with gangue to produce slag. Now, here is another question. What is blister copper? Blister means when on the surface of copper you see small protrusions or small bubble like thing, just as you see in your bubble sheets. So what are they? Is it pure copper when you see blister on the surface of copper? Is it pure copper? Is it an ore of copper or alloy of copper? Or it is impure copper? And the answer is it is impure copper. When we are obtaining the copper, then by auto reduction method, then sulfur dioxide which is getting bubbled out, it actually forms bubbles on the solidified copper, and so this copper is impure copper. Now, there is another very interesting and confusing question. What is the percentage of silver in the alloy German silver? And when we talk about the percentage of silver in the alloy German silver, then actually the name is German silver, but it contains no silver at all. So the answer is 0%. Talking about alloys, we go to the next question on alloys. And this is, alloys are homogeneous mixture of a metal with a metal or a non-metal. Now, which of them will contain a non-metal as one of its constituents? The answer here is steel. We've already discussed the rest of them contain metals only. Then we come to another part, and that is when the metals and non-metals react together, they give certain compounds, and one of them is an ionic compound. So which one of the given property is not exhibited by ionic compounds? Solubility in water, electrical conductivity in solid state, high melting and boiling points, or electrical conductivity in solid state. So ionic compounds do not conduct any electricity in the solid state. Okay. Now, here is a roadmap type of question. Reaction between X and Y gives a compound Z. X is actually losing electron and Y is gaining electron. So by this statement, we know which type of compound is Z. So once we have identified Z, then we want to know that which of them is not shown by Z. It has high melting point, has low melting point, conducts electricity in molten state, and occurs as solid. Now, by now you have identified that Z is an ionic compound, and so you know that it will never have low melting point. And so the answer is B. It is not a property shown by Z. Non-metals form covalent chlorides. Why? They can give electrons to chlorine. They can share electrons with chlorine. They can give electrons to chlorine atoms to form chloride, or they cannot share electrons with chlorine atoms. The answer is they can share because covalent compounds are formed by sharing. There are certain choices given to you, and you are asked which of them is not an ionic compound. The answer over here is B. That is 2 and 3. 2 and 3, HCl and carbon tetrachloride are covalent compound. They are not ionic. We now come to those questions which are reasoning based. That means there will be a question in which the first part is a statement and the second part is actually the reason for that statement. And you have to find out whether the assertion is only true or reason is only true or both are true. And if both are true, is the reason actually the reason for this assertion? So you will select A if both reason and assertion are correct. And this sequence does not change in any of the exams. So A means both are correct and reason is also correct explanation. B means both are correct, but reason is not the correct explanation. Third, C will be that assertion is true, but reason is false. And the statement is false, but reason is true. So let us see certain question based on this. The assertion says Al2O3 is an amphoteric oxide. And the reason given is Al2O3 reacts with acids as well as bases to form salt and water. Let us see. Here, the assertion is correct. aluminium oxide is an amphoteric oxide, and Al2 reacts with both acid and bases to form salt and water. The reason is also correct, and it also explains why we call Al2O3 an amphoteric oxide. Okay, next assertion. The statement says nitrogen is a non-metal. Reason: nitrogen has got 5 valence electrons. Now, can it be the reason? Here, the assertion and the reason both are correct. The assertion and the reason both are correct. But the reason does not explain. The reason does not explain the assertion. Nitrogen is a non-metal not because it has got 5 valence electrons. So, we move to the next one. Copper does not react with sulfuric acid. That is one statement given. And the reason is said that copper is more reactive than hydrogen. So let us see. Here, the statement is true. Copper does not react with sulfuric acid. But that is not the reason. Not because copper is above hydrogen in the reactivity series. That is a wrong thing. So we say that assertion is true, but reason is false. Okay. Now we come that assertion is highly reactive metals are obtained by electrolytic reduction of their molten ore. Highly reactive metals. The reason given is highly reactive metals can be extracted by chemical reduction. Now, you have already covered a number of metallurgy process, so you know that electrolytic reduction is there for highly reactive metal. But let us see. Assertion is true, but the reason is false. Because highly reactive metals cannot be extracted by chemical reduction. They can only be extracted by electrolytic reduction. So we select the C. Okay. A very common phenomena. Silver becomes black when exposed to atmosphere. And the reason is silver reacts with H2S gas to form a black color Ag2S, silver sulphide. Okay. You all know assertion seems to be true. And reason is also true. And it also explains the black color. So therefore, you know that this part or this question, we have to select the option A, where both are true and reason explains the assertion. Okay. Now, we are trying to do electrolytic refining of zinc. So where does zinc get deposited? We have to fill in the blank. And the answer is cathode. All metals go to cathode only. It can be zinc, it can be anything. Even if it is put over here aluminium, the answer remains same, cathode. So all metals get deposited at the cathode. The corrosion of iron. A very special name is given to it, and we have to remember that name. So corrosion of iron is called rusting. Now, when zinc is added to a solution of iron 2 sulfate, then the greenish color of iron sulfate solution fades gradually due to the formation of colorless zinc sulfate, and iron is deposited on the zinc. Is it true? Does it happen? Will it happen? Well, it's quite true. Zinc is very reactive and it can displace iron from iron sulfate, and iron 2 sulfate is greenish color. So as it gets removed or broken down, therefore the green color will start fading. Now, a negatively charged ion is known as cation. Cation, okay? This is false. They are actually called anions. The negatively charged ions are called anions. Hematite is an ore of copper. We all know that hematite is not an ore of copper but iron. So our answer will be false. Now, the widely used method for refining impure metal is electrolytic refining. See, when we want to get any metal in very high purity, highly pure state, then which method do we use? Is it electrolytic refining? And the answer is true. Electrolytic refining is a method which gives very highly pure metal. And so, when you talk about blister copper, it will be refined by the method of electrolytic refining only, right? So, I think we end all that is there in this topic, which needs to be taken care of when you are going to uh, cover up this chapter for your board exams. Before we leave, there are few points. We had just talked about cations and anions. So atoms of metals will lose electrons and they will form the cations, the positive ions. Non-metals gain electrons and they become anions, the negative ones. And the oppositely charged ions will attract each other and give us ionic compounds. When ions are involved, then it is called ionic. And this is how an ionic compound will develop. Chlorine molecule will take up 2 electrons because there are 2 atoms and gives the negative ion. And magnesium loses the 2 electrons, gives one to one chlorine, the other to other chlorine. And here we have got 2 negative ions and one positive ion with 2 positive charge, and they will form an ionic compound. So let us see certain questions on matching the following. In this type of questions, when you are going to match them, you don't have to draw lines. You have to write one written in front of sodium, and then you go to the column 2 and see A, B, C, D, which is correct. Now D is correct. Sodium reacts explosively with cold water. So you will write 1 and then an arrow and you will write D. So that is how we do the match the following when we reach higher classes. No line formations over here. So you see, sodium reacts explosively with cold water. Copper forms a black color oxide. Silver, you've just seen, if left exposed to air, it forms a black metal sulphide. Gold is the metal which occurs in free state. And zinc is used for galvanizing iron so that iron does not get corrosion. Cinnabar, very commonly, very frequently used, is an ore of. We know that it's mercury. There is a compound called calcium nitrite, very important compound, and so its formula is Ca3N2. These are certain extra questions which we should be aware of because uh, they are used in weldings and other things. If copper is kept in open air, it will lose its shining brown surface and gains a green coating. Now, why it happens? You have seen copper vessels kept in your home. If they are not used and cleaned for a long time, they will become dull and the shine will go off and a green coating is formed, which is poisonous. And that is because copper carbonate has got deposited on it. Okay. Metals react with water to give dash and hydrogen gas. Here we are talking about very reactive metal. And the answer is metal hydroxide. The metal gets converted into metal hydroxide and releases hydrogen gas. So, when a strip of copper metal is placed in iron, now these are all activity based questions, then red brown copper metal is formed. Is it true or is it false? And definitely it is false. Iron can replace copper from its compound, but not copper cannot displace iron from its compound. So this is a false one. Now, the electronic configuration of sodium ion is the same as that of nearest inert gas. Okay. So, whenever an ion is formed, it makes or it reaches the configuration of the nearest inert gas. But then it cannot be helium because sodium has got more electrons than helium. So definitely by losing one electron, it cannot become helium-like. That's a false one. So with this, we have reached the end of this lesson and it covers every corner of the topic that can be asked in your board exams or in any of the Olympiads and other things that you appear. So hope you find this useful for your competitions, for your board exams. So I would like to hand over to back to the
Thank
studio.
you. थैंक यू सो मच नुपुमन, आपने प्रेजेंटेशन ये सारे पॉइंट्स को क्लियर करा, फिल इन द ब्लैंक्स, ट्रू फॉल्स, एसेशंस। आई थिंक जो भी व्यूवर्स होंगे उनकी जो भी क्वेरीज होंगी चैप्टर से रिलेटेड, आई थिंक सारे डाउट्स और मैम ने जो भी ट्रू फॉल्स, फिल इन द ब्लैंक्स और उसका एक्सप्लेनेशन भी, क्वेश्चन के साथ में एक्सप्लेनेशन भी बहुत अच्छी तरीके से दिया है। तो आई थिंक डाउट्स इनके क्लियर होने चाहिए और चैप्टर इनको प्रिपेयर हो जाना चाहिए। जो भी 1 मार्क्स के क्वेश्चन आई थिंक बहुत सॉलिड होता है, मीन्स अगर वो गलत हो गए तो 1 मार्क गया। तो थैंक यू सो मच नुपुर मैम, और आप ऐसे
Thank you.
हमारा प्रेजेंटेशन नेक्स्ट चैप्टर भी आएगा तो आई थिंक आप प्रेजेंट
Sure,
करिए यहाँ पे।
sure.
थैंक यू सो मच नुपुर मैम।